Have you ever found yourself thinking, what if I'm not good enough? What if everything goes wrong? Or, what if they laugh at me? These thoughts are more common than they seem, and more often than not, they have no basis in fact. But even so, they tighten your chest. Insecurity doesn't shout. It whispers, saps your spirit, sabotages your plans. And the strangest thing? It thrives precisely where we lose control, or rather, where we think we should have it. That's where Stoicism comes in quietly, without promising magic formulas, but offering something far more valuable: clarity. A calmer perspective on chaos. A practical way to deal with the ups and downs without getting lost in them. Contrary to what many people think, the Stoics weren't cold or distant. They felt everything, they just learned not to be swept away by what they couldn't change. And that's precisely where the silent power lies. It's not about eliminating insecurity, but learning to walk with it without letting it dictate your path. In this text, you'll discover how this ancient philosophy can be surprisingly relevant, and, more than that, transformative. Ready to rediscover balance, presence, and a confidence that doesn't depend on external applause? Then take a deep breath and come with me, understanding what we can control. There are days when everything seems to slip through our fingers, right? The meeting that runs late, someone's off-color comment, that strange feeling of not being in the right place. But Stoicism reminds us, not everything is under our control, and that's okay. This awareness, which seems simple, is one of the greatest sources of freedom. When we accept that we have no control over the external, but that we can always choose how to respond, life changes. We begin to exchange anguish for balance. It's not conformity, it's wisdom. Insecurity often stems from the illusion that we can control the uncontrollable. Other people's judgment, the future, people's reactions. But you can't swim against all the tides at once. What can you do? Strengthen the boat. In other words, take care of what's internal, what's in our control, like our perception, our presence, and our attitudes. Practices like journaling, writing about our feelings, or meditation help a lot with this, because it's in silence, not in noise, that we begin to gain clarity about what truly matters. Of course, this process doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes we'll react impulsively. Other times we'll feel fragile, vulnerable, even a little lost. But each time we choose to respond more consciously instead of just reacting is already a step forward. This is the foundation of resilience. Standing firm, even when the world shakes. The control that matters is the one we have over ourselves. From there, everything begins to reorganize. Over time, insecurity doesn't disappear, but it stops being on autopilot. We take the wheel. Virtue, the heart of happiness. These days, it seems that happiness has become synonymous with achieving things. A position, a body, a number of followers. But what if true happiness isn't external but internal in the way we choose to live? For the Stoics, the answer is clear. Happiness arises from virtue. Being just wise, courageous, and moderate, not out of obligation, but because it makes sense, because it generates inner peace. And look how interesting, virtue doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Sincere attention to the choices we make daily, even the smallest ones. Of course, it's not always easy. There are days when courage wavers, when justice seems to demand more than we have to give. And then that old companion emerges. Insecurity. Am I on the right path? Who hasn't? But living virtuously isn't a contest of who makes the fewest mistakes. It's a constant exercise in growth. It's taking a deep breath and trying again with more balance and less pressure. When we act based on values and not fears, we create a sense of true control, independent of anyone else's opinion. Want a practical example? Think about the next time you feel like responding to criticism with anger. Instead, pause. Reflect. What is the fairest and wisest response I can give right now? That question alone changes everything. This is what virtue is, applying wisdom even in simple moments. And, little by little, you'll notice something curious. Happiness doesn't come like a bolt of lightning, but like a sun that slowly rises, warming you from within. And best of all, it doesn't disappear with the weather because it's rooted in your essence. Reframing perception. Sometimes what brings us down isn't what happens, but how we interpret it. A delay becomes neglect. A glance becomes criticism. A mistake becomes failure. But what if it's just our perception distorting the facts? Stoicism teaches that the external world is what it is, neutral, impersonal, and we are the ones who give it meaning. The good news? This meaning can be changed. We can learn to reframe, not to pretend everything is fine, but to choose narratives that strengthen us, rather than paralyze us. It's like changing the lens on a camera. Reality remains, but the focus shifts. Instead of, "That was a disaster," you might see, "That showed me something important about myself." It seems simple, but it requires practice, especially in those moments when insecurity wants to take over. At these times, it's worth taking a deep breath and asking yourself, "What can I learn here?" Or, "How can this situation help me grow?" This subtle shift in perspective activates our inner wisdom. It brings control, resilience, and emotional balance. A powerful practice to start with. Write daily about something that bothered you, and then try to reframe it. Traffic irritated me becomes, "I had the chance to practice patience." I received criticism becomes, "I was provoked to reflect and evolve." It might seem like magic, but it's just trained perception. And the more we practice, the less hostage we become to life's ups and downs. Insecurity still creeps in, of course, but it loses its power when you know you can change the meaning of things. And that changes everything. Amor fati, to love what is. There's an idea that's frightening at first glance. Loving what we don't choose. Loving what hurts, what challenges, what seems to break us inside. But that's exactly what Stoicism proposes with the concept of amor fati. It's not about resignation or passivity, but about embracing destiny with courage. Understanding that there is growth even in headwinds. That every curve in the path, no matter how difficult, carries within it the seed of wisdom. Loving what is requires presence, and a kind of acceptance that isn't defeat, but quiet strength. Of course, in practice, this seems impossible at times. How do we accept a loss? How do we love a stumble that shamed us or a choice that led to suffering? The answer comes with time and with intention. Amor fati isn't a button we push. It's a habit of perception, a repeated decision to see value where impulse only sees pain. In these moments, the ego screams insecurities, but the soul, when heard, whispers something different. You are growing, even now, and that already shifts the weight of the pain. A practical way to cultivate this perspective is to look back. Take a difficult moment that, at the time, seemed unfair, and see what it brought you today. Perhaps a skill, a friendship, a new path. This daily reflection trains our resilience. It helps develop balance, wisdom, and that silent virtue that shines even when everything around us is dim. Amor fati is the art of walking with an open heart, even on cloudy days. And, little by little, understanding that everything, absolutely everything, can serve our growth. The Stoic path, a journey, not a destination. The idea of getting there is tempting, isn't it? As if one day we'd wake up ready, wise, calm, balanced. But Stoicism shows that it doesn't work that way. There's no finish line. There's practice, presence, and constancy. Stoic philosophy isn't lived in books. It's lived in ordinary days, in small choices, in how we deal with the unexpected. It's a daily journey of self-discovery and refinement. Stumbled? Welcome. That's part of it too. The secret is to keep walking, even with doubts in your backpack. You don't have to be perfect to get started. Neither secure nor 100% confident. In fact, the Stoics knew that insecurity is part of the human package, and so they created simple and powerful practices to deal with it. One of them, I-night review. Before going to sleep, ask yourself, what did I do well today? And what can I do better tomorrow? Another is premeditation of evils. Reflect in the morning on the day's potential obstacles. It may seem like a small thing, but these routines build presence and self-control. And that's gold. Remember, even the wise were once beginners. And no one needs to take on life's entirety at once. A small adjustment in attitude can change the course of your journey. Breathe before reacting. Choose to act virtuously even when no one is watching. These practices build a kind of emotional muscle. And over time, you realize that the Stoic journey doesn't require you to be someone different. Just more aware, more whole, more yourself. Growth comes step by step, and that's what makes the path so rich. Practical Stoicism in everyday life. The beauty of Stoicism is that it doesn't require a mountaintop monastery to function. It reveals itself in the most banal places. In slow traffic, in a lingering email, in the grocery line. It's in these moments that philosophy is put to the test. The question isn't, what is the world doing to me? But rather, how can I respond to this with poise? Small choices like breathing before responding, listening attentively, refraining from judging, become exercises in control and virtue. And life, little by little, becomes more textured and less reactive. Imagine that every challenging situation is a training ground. You don't have to win them all, but you can always learn something from each one. You know that annoying delay? It might be the perfect time to practice patience. That unexpected criticism? An invitation to humility and insight. This perspective transforms frustration into a tool and restlessness into a force for growth. Over time, you build a sense of inner control that doesn't depend on how the world behaves, but on how you behave in the face of it. And when you slip up because you will, that's okay. Stoic practice also involves self-compassion. It's not about becoming a Zen robot, but about staying grounded even in the midst of chaos. A good habit to help is gentle self-reflection. Ask yourself at the end of the day, where was I guided by insecurity? And where did I act wisely? This calm, non-judgmental honesty is powerful, because the goal isn't to live flawlessly. It's to live with presence, resilience, and a more fatty. Philosophy, in this case, becomes living practice, and constant practice is what builds wisdom. And now, tell me, how many times have you tried to change the world outside without first looking within? How many decisions were guided by insecurity disguised as a need for control? The Stoic journey shows us that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself, and that starts with small, daily choices. What can you do today to practice more virtue? What perception can you reframe right now? What if you viewed the next challenge as an opportunity for growth, not a threat? The answers don't have to come immediately, but simply asking is a sign of presence. And presence is one of the greatest superpowers in such fast-paced times. If this content resonated with you, don't let this reflection stop here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue exploring topics that awaken wisdom, inner control, and emotional balance. Stoicism isn't a distant theory. It's a living practice that can transform your life from the inside out. And this was just the beginning.